Are you listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other platform where you can leave a rate or review? Do you like what we're doing? If the answer to all of that is yes, please consider quickly giving us a 5-star rate. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a nice review, we greatly appreciate that as well. Okay, let's do this.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 327 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 55 of A Dance with Dragons, that is, The Queensguard.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Well, then we are going to spoil things for you, but regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and other things of note in this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. I realized that I texted you and said I was doing our audio test. And as we started recording, I realized I didn't actually do that. So
if we don't sound great, it's his fault for once.
I sat here and watched you do your audio test, thinking all high and mighty that I've done my own. But no, I just realized I have not. I'm doing all right. So you and I were both in the North Carolina mountains.
We both went to the North Carolina mountains for a romantic weekend. Separate romantic weekends.
Yes. I'm sure it would have been a lot of fun if we'd gone together as well. We were in a little town very far west in the North Carolina mountains called Barristan City, which I know you are familiar with.
I'm very familiar. I've done some genealogical research on my wife, and Barristan City is the epicenter of my wife's family.
Okay. Well, it's a very cute little town,
yeah.
And we were there to do this Valentine's Day train ride with dinner and all that. We went with three other couples, and the train ride, we may have wanted to think through the plan a little bit better, because what is the beauty of a train ride but that
seeing things?
Yes. Exactly.
Was it a nighttime train ride?
It was. We got on the train right at dusk. And within 20 minutes, it basically just became a bumpy dining room because I couldn't see anything out the window at all.
I love the idea that these guys are sort of getting together beforehand, and they're like, all right, so we'll sell the daytime tickets at normal price, but I've got an idea. I think we can bump up the price for the nighttime tickets because they'll think it's the right time to come.
Yeah, and but that was not the biggest mishap of my day on Valentine's Day.
Before you get onto the biggest mishap, where did the train go?
It went from Barristan City's train station to somewhere, and then turned around and came right back. It didn't loop.
About 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and back again?
It was about 3 hours total.
Oh, so, further than that, I see.
Yeah, it was about, but it was going very slow. Like, we have an app that tells you, how fast you've been driving.
It's telling you to pick up the pace.
It said our top speed was 21 miles an hour. Not cruising, that's for sure.
But just one thing. Yeah. I've been on a train in Barristan City as well. Did it have windows?
It did.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the one I was on didn't. It was just like,
like a cattle cart.
It was. Just me and the hobos.
I was right up against a very nice window where I could basically see my own reflection.
Well, there's not many things to compare with the North Carolina mountains.
Well, there's that. And my lovely wife's reflection was right next to mine, which is a much better view.
So what else went wrong? Do tell.
So you may or may not know this about me, but I don't have a lot of coverage on my head as far as hair goes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, just in case you hadn't noticed, I don't have a great deal of hair coverage on the top of my head. Yeah. And because of that, my head gets cold rather quickly. So I have this knit cap Some people call them toboggans. There's different names for them, but that I wear when it's cold and we're outside. And a Saturday morning-ish, we all went for a hike through this beautiful Great Smoky Mountains to these two waterfalls. And we stopped at the first waterfall, and it was very nice. I was concerned because I asked Stacy, are we going to be doing any hiking? She said, no, I don't think so. This person has this, and we're all past 50, so there's a litany of injuries that need to be considered. So I brought white tennis shoes. So I was concerned that we were hiking, and I'm wearing these white tennis shoes. But we stopped at the first waterfall, and someone was like, let's take Valentine's Day pictures. So we did like high school dance style, one couple at a time, stood in front of the waterfall and got our picture taken. And we get to the next waterfall, which is nearing the end of the trail. And it's a little path that goes down, that kind of goes right up to where the waterfall is. And there's like a direct cliff to the left of the river below the waterfall. And someone says, hey, let's take Valentine's Day photos again. So I should have mentioned this. For the first picture, I took my knit cap off because I don't want to wear a knit cap while I'm taking a Valentine's Day photo. It's just not a great look.
I mean,
so I took it off.
You're cool in anything, but you're pushing it with that thing.
Right, exactly. So I took it off for the first one. And then we get to the second one, and I just instinctively take it off for the second one. But I forgot one small detail.
Go on.
My sunglasses were sitting on my top of my knit cap.
But fortunately, you were just by the side of a cliff, so...
Yes, right. So what could possibly go wrong? So I pull the cap off my head, and my glasses pop up in the air and fall right past my face, right down the cliff to the water's edge, and just sneak into the water. But we can see them sitting there in a tide pool, a little pool on the side of the at the water's edge, and they unfortunately were not cheap sunglasses.
No,
they were a very expensive brand of sunglasses.
Cheap ones stick around.
Right, I would have never lost those.
Expensive ones look for a new home.
Yes. So they're like, we see them. They're right there. They're right there. So I hand Stacy my coat, and I remember I was worried about getting my white shoes dirty. Mm-hmm. So now I am scaling down the side of a cliff to get to the water's edge, and I get to the base, and I'm right above the glasses, and I'm holding on to roots that are sticking out of the side of the cliff, but there's nowhere for me to put my foot in order to. I need a fulcrum. I need to be able to bend down and pick up the glasses. Both my hands.
It'd be hard to hold the root in one hand and then sort of hold dance your other hand down to the ground to pick up. I get it.
So I have to decide between these shoes that they're nice, but they're just, I bought them from Rack Room. They're not, I don't buy expensive shoes, but they're fine. Or rather significantly more expensive sunglasses. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I put my foot in the water, and it was deeper than I thought. It went about up to the top of my calf. But and then I reached down, but when I put my foot in the water, it caused a bunch of murkiness to come up. And I reached down for the
hiding
glasses.
The sunglasses.
Yes, I reached down and I couldn't feel. Now I have a shirt on, so my long sleeve shirt is getting soaked. I'm reaching down.
Your pants are getting soaked.
Yes, my pants. I'm wearing jeans, so the water is creeping up my pant leg, and it is freezing. And I can't find them. So, but there's too much murkiness, so I have to stand there in that position, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, until the water clears.
Yeah, you can't even move. You can't even shiver.
Yes. And water clears, and guess what's not there?
No,
not there. So now what do? I'm already 50% committed. So I bring that other foot down and stick it in the water. Now I'm up to my knees in 50-degree water, if that. Probably just above freezing, because we're in the North Carolina mountains, let me remind you.
Yeah, it's chilly, yeah.
And I got a wet sleeve, a freezing arm in hand, but there's no sun. I don't even know where to begin to look. So everybody's like, try over there. So I wade my way in this direction. Try underneath that log. And I'm trying here, there, and everywhere. And of course, many photos and videos are being taken of my situation.
Yes.
I spent what felt like 3 hours, but was probably 20 minutes wading around, diving my hand underneath the water for nothing. I could have just waved goodbye to my sunglasses and walked back down the trail, which I ultimately had to walk back down the trail with soaked feet and legs and right hand and arm.
You know what? I would have really enjoyed this story if you'd found the sunglasses at the end, but I can't enjoy it.
I was not going to let my stupidity and mishap interfere with anybody else's good time. So I stayed cheery and positive. We went into town. We shopped around. We had lunch. Meanwhile, I'm wearing basically frozen shoes and pants. And I just kept thinking, if I had only found the sunglasses, it would be fine.
Yeah.
Everything else would dry.
Right, everything else, yeah.
For nothing.
I like the thought maybe you popped into a little sort of gift shop and got yourself a $2 pair of plastic sunglasses.
I looked at a few, but I was like, no. I have several old pairs around the house. I sure wish I had brought them.
Oh, sorry, Mackelly, that sucks.
Oh, well, you know.
Buymeacoffee.com, you can join us at our sustainer tiers to help Mackelly in his pursuit of a new pair of sunglasses.
I wouldn't normally buy expensive sunglasses. They were a Christmas gift from Stacy.
See, I don't really have that problem because all of my glasses are prescription. So they are by design expensive. There is no way around that.
Right.
If I lose my sunglasses, I'm very unhappy. Not because I'm fancy, but just because I'm blind.
Because now you're blind.
Mm-hmm. Well, excellent. I mean, apart from not excellent, really miserable. Let's get down to business. How did we leave the Queensguard, who is none other than Sir Barristan Selmy? The last we saw of Sir Barristan Selmy, he was attending the reopening of the fighting pits with his Queen Daenerys Targaryen. Everything went off smoothly and she was back tucked in her bed by nightfall.
Yeah, right. Wait
a second. That's not how it panned out. Everything went to hell in a handbasket. Belwas was poisoned, Drogon arrived and was wounded while causing plenty of devastation, and Daenerys faced down her dragon, to her protector's horror, and appeared to ride him, by him I mean Drogon, not Selmy, out of there. And worst of all, nothing bad seemed to befall Hizdahr. So... C- on the post-bodyguarding appraisal form, I think, for Sir Barristan.
Yes.
Why don't we give a summary of this one?
Okay. It would have been funny if Barristan had piggybacked Daenerys off.
There's only one way to get away from a dragon. Hop on!
Oh, well, Reznak relieves Sir Barristan of his guard duty. The king wants king's men around him. Sir Barristan can't argue. He is and always will be the Queen's man. He refuses to believe she's dead, but can do nothing to prevent the power pivot that Hizdahr has enacted in her absence. Belwas at death's door, Skahaz sidelined, the Unsullied have withdrawn to their barracks, Daario Naharis, Grolio, and Hero of the Unsullied remain prisoners of the Yunkai'i. The remnants of Dany's Khalasar were dispatched across the river to find her.
Reznak explains that negotiations with the Yunkai'i are expected, over reparations for Drogon's breach of the peace, to go better if the Missandei delegation is all Missandei. Selmy is being replaced by pit fighters. Barristan is not surprised. Hizdahr is not secure and he's alienated the Unsullied by expecting their fealty. They had reminded him in turn that they were free men and had withdrawn. Reznak further explains that Sir Barristan is still expected to lead the Missandei's army if the peace talks fail. The old knight leaves the cloying perfume of the seneschal and climbs back to the top of the pyramid, bemoaning his aging bones.
En route, he thinks of the boys he's been training. They're coming along well. The chaff has been cut and the remainder should make good knights, in time. In the Queen's quarters, only Missandei remains, a forlorn little ghost. From the terrace he can see the Yunkai'i burning their dead. The pale mare is both inside and outside the city now. He reminisces of his youth, his accolade from King Aegon V after the tourney at King's Landing.
Sir Barristan berates himself for not being fast enough to save Daenerys. He dreams of the scene at the pit often. Belwas being sick, Hizdahr wanting the dragon killed, the chaos in the crowd, and Daenerys facing down the dragon. 214 were killed, thrice that burned. Drogon definitely escaped, and no sign of Daenerys was found. Some swore she fell, but Selmy knows what he saw. She was riding the dragon like the Targaryens of old. He wonders out loud if she's flying back to Westeros. Missandei answers that she wouldn't abandon them.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Missandei has a message. Skahaz wants to meet with Sir Barristan. It's the kind of secret scheming he had hoped he'd left behind to Littlefinger and Varys. He'd read the histories of the Kingsguard, and the worst of them were the ones who played the Game of Thrones. But he agrees. Missandei goes to return the message. She's worried for Daenerys. The Yunkai'i have surrounded the city with scorpions against Drogon's return. Sir Barristan assures her that dragons are not so easy to kill, especially in flight. He promises to keep Daenerys safe, which reassures Missandei, but he doubts his own words and abilities.
He thinks back on the kings he served, especially how he served Aerys, and how his own actions protected the king, lengthened his reign, and cost the realm so dearly. If Rhaegar had had his chance, he could have healed the Seven Kingdoms. Selmy has served 3 dead kings. He cannot face losing Daenerys. He visits the trainees and helps with their education. Most have real promise, and their loyalty to their Misa cannot be denied.
After supper on the terrace, he seeks out Skahaz. He knows they will be talking treason, but he's not sure where his responsibilities belong. As a Kingsguard, his first duty is to his sovereign, not her consort. What would Daenerys want of him? He goes down to the stables and finds Skahaz. The Giscari tells Sir Barristan that he has found the poisoner, a confectioner whose daughter was taken hostage until the queen was dead. Belwas and the dragons saved Daenerys, but the man's daughter was not so lucky.
The peace is doomed, Skahaz insists. Yurkaz Zoyunzak died in the pit, in place of one old lion in charge of the Yunkai'i, who knew his history and knew what dragons unleash. The Yunkai'i are now led by a bloodthirsty pack of jackals. Worse, Volantis has launched its fleet to re-establish slavery. Worse yet, Hizdahr knows and plans to open the doors to the invaders. Everyone will be enslaved, and Selmy will be lucky if he ends his days in the fighting pits. Skahaz thinks the sellsword companies can be termed, but it will also take the Unsullied to turn this battle around. But now Selmy smells the treason. But Skahaz is adamant the siege must be broken before the Volantines arrive. His spies show that the time is now. No trust within the ranks, and the bloody flux running rampant means the Yunkai'i are at a low ebb.
But Sir Barristan doesn't know how to act. He wants Daenerys' opinion, or maybe Hizdahr's, but Skahaz points out that Hizdahr's is her poisoner. What proof? The fact that he sits the throne is all the proof you need. If he's not the Harpy, he's the firstborn son. He urged Dany to try the locust. Sir Barristan wants to interview the confectioner alone. Skahaz doesn't understand, but he does agree. Until then, no move against Hizdahr. But if Sir Barristan is convinced, then Skahaz and Sir Barristan will take turns being the one to kill him. Well, we've got a new first-time POV here.
Yeah. Always exciting when we get one of those.
Yeah, I had to go double-check that. I was like, we haven't had him yet, right?
No, I don't think we did, no.
And we learned that he is 63 years old.
Oh, I managed to read this like 4 times without realizing. Oh, no, I remember it now, yes, yeah.
16 when he was knighted, and it was 47 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know, he he mentions or thinks to himself that the pyramid is 800 feet high, which is 100 feet higher than the wall of Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
And he also later mentions that he goes up and down it sometimes as many as 7-8 times a day. That's some pretty good cardio for a 63-year-old man.
Yeah, I'm not joining him in that. Once a day is plenty. Or less. I'm good with that too. So Daenerys is not confirmed dead. And, I think from our perspective, we thought she rode Drogon out of there. Right. It wasn't like he picked her up in his jaws and was throwing her around. It was a matter of dragon and rider. But yes. Selmy saw that, but I'm not sure everyone saw it the same way. So I think some people definitely thought it was something different. I will say though that the difference between riding a dragon voluntarily and being abducted by one is probably not that big of a difference. If you get on the back of it and it flies away, well, technically you're riding the dragon. I'm not sure you're really controlling it though.
At least not at this level of her flight dragon flying expertise.
I mean, maybe she's like, she's right in the middle of the Dothraki Sea now saying to Drogon, thanks, this is exactly where I wanted to come with no water in the middle of the day.
Perfect. I haven't been here in a while. I'm so glad to be back. Well, we do get an update on the scene at the pit, the fighting pit, and its aftermath. Like we mentioned in the summary, 214 people were killed and roughly 650 were injured or burned. I guess if you've been burned, you've also been injured. But
yeah.
That's a lot. That's nearing 1,000 people.
Casualties, yeah. I mean, if she was in control of him, that's pretty brutal of the Misa of all these people to unleash that on him. So I think she definitely wasn't in full control, because I don't think she would do that. She might kind of like to do it to some of the nobles. Right. But I mean, there were 30,000 people in that fighting pit. They can't all be noble.
Right. Yeah. The lower bowl. I guess she could have aimed Drogon toward the lower bowl.
True, but it seemed like he was aiming at the stampede of people trying to get out of there, which feels like it would be a mix of everyone.
Yes, I'm sure it was. But back to your Dothraki Sea mention, that is the direction she was seen heading.
Right. So north, which is why her Khalasar's been sent to look for her, because they think that. But it's got to be hard to track someone who came in by dragon,
Yes. And there's not much in the way of civilization in that direction either.
Yeah.
But her blood riders, Aggo and Ricaro, were sent, and they're Dothraki, and her Khalasar went with them, including Iri and Jhiqui, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for them, I mean, they're nomadic anyway. They weren't exactly settled in Meereen, probably.
True. They probably are looking forward to getting back to,
into the
what
saddle.
they do. Yeah.
It's also slightly interesting that I mean, her Khalasar wasn't big, but it wasn't trivial either. They just rode out. This siege is somewhat porous.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. Yeah, I guess Hizdahr must have, made some sort of negotiation. Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe you say, hey, we're going to let out our fiercest fighters so they won't be here anymore. I mean, sure. They're definitely riding away, right? Okay, fine.
It really doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But, so Drogon's not that big, and it was mentioned in this chapter, part of the Aftermath recap, is some arrows and crossbows and spears.
Yes, not just the spear that hit him during the chapter. He was hit again multiple times. So
yeah, so how far could he have carried her?
Yeah.
If he's injured, it might affect the distance, not to mention the fact that he's still a rather young dragon. But regardless, it will be a needle in a grass stack, a ghost grass stack, that is, to find her.
So Hizdahr's wasting no time in making cabinet changes. So you paid a lot of attention, more than I did, and I see in the notes now. You paid more attention to who the specific changes were. Skahaz was in charge of the Brazen Beast, so he's been replaced by Hizdahr's cousin Margaz.
Yeah. And we know there's bad blood. We knew this before Dany left town, that there was bad blood between Skahaz and Hizdahr. And from just their houses in general, Loraq and Kandaq, there's, I believe, some bad blood there. And Skahaz was strongly against this marriage. So it's not shocking.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that particular transition of power is that Skahaz, when he's talking to Barristan Selmy, he says, "Oh, the Brazen Beasts are still mine, don't you worry."
Yes, right.
So that's an interesting thought. I mean, I would assume part of that is bluster, but presumably it's bluster based on some things. He must believe he has loyalists within the Brazen Beasts.
Yeah, well, the Brazen Beasts are mostly made up of freedmen and Shavepates, both of which would be more loyal to Skahaz than to Loraq.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Ricaro and Ago has been sent into the Dothraki Sea. So, basically, as we go through this list, you'll see that it's all people who were loyal to Daenerys who are being pushed aside, who are not there anymore.
Because Belwas is still fighting to overcome the poison locusts, and Barristan ponders the idea of whether the Blue Graces might be working against Belwas' recovery.
If that's true, I will say that either Belwas is superhuman or the confectioner really phoned it in on poisoning the locusts, right, because he ate 10 times as many locusts as you could reasonably expect Daenerys to eat, and he didn't die from it.
Yeah, that is very true. He ate the whole bowl of locusts.
Exactly.
But if the claim, the accusation is only in his head, he hasn't said it aloud that we were aware of anyway, so it's unsubstantiated, but it would certainly say something about the Green Grace's stance. We know that she strongly advocated for Hizdahr. So I don't know.
Yeah, but what is Belwas on his own? You know, it's not like he has a loyal following.
Right. He's just one of Dany's
one wild
people.
Card who presumably will be laid low for some time, even if they do try to help him get back to health. You know.
Yeah, it's just if they're actively working against him, they must have some motivation.
Yeah.
To do so. So. Yeah,
but again, like you said, though, that's just Barristan's thought. You know,
yes.
I think Barristan thinks that Belwas would get better if they stopped their ministrations. So maybe their ministrations have ill intent.
Right.
Missandei has been dismissed from her role because she's a child and a former slave, and unbecoming of Hizdahr to have her at his side. Fair enough.
Fair enough, but it would have certainly sent a message if he kept her that he is serious about not returning to slavery.
He really wants to send the opposite message, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Poor thing, though. She's roaming Dany's apartments alone except for Barristan because, like I mentioned, Irri and Jiqui are not there as well.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know if you noticed, but in the recap, I stole the exact words from the book. She's a forlorn little ghost.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so Hizdahr tried to tell the Unsullied that they were now his fighting force. And the Unsullied said, well, actually, we're free men who choose who we fight for. And Hizdahr didn't take that very well, and so the Unsullied downed tools and went back to their barracks and refused to play ball with anyone.
And that's a big loss to Hizdahr.
Yeah.
He possibly counted them as part of his means of keeping his rule, which is also in a bit of a state here.
But of course, you know what? If Skahaz is right, though, if Skahaz is right that he's planning to open the doors to the Volantines, then the less Unsullied, the better. The weaker his fighting force, the better.
Well, yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that. If that's true, if he's really planning on letting the Volantine army in.
Maybe Hizdahr's natural abrasiveness and being revolting to everyone around him is working in his favor now.
I wonder Dany's not here. So there's no option of them reporting to her. But I wonder if he had asked them to report to Barristan.
Yeah.
If they would have been more open to the idea.
Or just asked nicely.
Well, maybe
or just
that too.
asked instead of told. And Barristan himself is replaced by pit fighters. Fighters we saw fighting in the pits. And it's kind of like, that's both... It's a sort of strange one for Hizdahr, because you might expect Hizdahr to... On some levels, you'd see Hizdahr as wanting to surround himself by people of Sir Barristan's, lofty status.
Right.
Not pit fighters. But these guys can really fight. I mean, I might actually choose them over Sir Barristan in a rough and tumble.
Well, they're definitely younger.
So. Yeah. So they are good choices if you are actually afraid. If you're not just putting on airs and graces with your Kingsguard, but actually afraid of what might happen to you. I can see why you might choose these guys. So yeah, it perhaps goes to Hizdahr's state of mind that he wants them.
He also wants people loyal to him.
Yeah.
And Barristan's not loyal to him.
Oh, obviously that's the biggest driver for sure. But the actual choice is kind of like they're not just Myronese nobles who know how to carry a sword. They are seriously dangerous fighters who could keep an assassin at bay.
Yes, my concern is their lack of experience in that department. They
True.
might not know signs of concern,
Good point.
or be vigilant as a Kingsguard knight might be. But Barristan calls Meereen a pit of vipers compared to Westeros, and I thought that was kind of ironic because it's a very similar term to the one Ned used for the small council that he and Barristan sat on together under Robert.
Yeah, to me, I'm surprised to hear Sir Barristan thinking that, unless he's just forgotten what it used to be like in King's Landing, because his own ouster from King's Landing was extremely similar to this.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So,
but he is still assigned to leading the Myronese army, because Hizdahr is not dumb. Just removed him from his personal guard. There's a distinction, and Barristan kind of gets confused about what exactly he's being asked to do and not do at the beginning of the chapter, and Reznak explains, no, we don't want you to completely leave. We are just removing you from your guard duties, but you will still oversee the Myronese army.
Yeah. And he mentions that Hizdahr is worried about other people within Meereen having a better claim to the throne than him. I mean,
right.
His claim to the throne was marrying the queen, but now she's scarpered. The rival houses could be vying to take the throne from him. So that's one of the reasons he's trying to consolidate his power as quickly as possible around himself and about having only very staunch allies close by.
Yes, very true.
But
do you think it's...
Well, I was just going to say it's a backdrop to the story that doesn't get too much thought, really, because we basically saw the politics of Meereen as Dany versus the Myronese. But of course, the Myronese themselves had a lot of internal politics that still need to get sorted out, and those politics will rise up while Dany is missing.
Absolutely, they will, and they're already rising up. We don't know exactly how long she's been gone, but it doesn't seem to have been very long.
Yeah, he did say he dreamt often of the pit, of the fighting pit, so it feels like it's been a couple of weeks at least.
At least a few days to have time
enough
to dream
days
more
for him
than
to
once.
Multiple dreams, yeah. Unless every time he naps, Which,
right.
Given the number of stairs he's climbing, it's probably about 8 times a day.
So, regarding the first part of what you were saying there, the consolidation of loyalists to him, do you think part of the reason he wanted any Dany loyalists out of his immediate court is because Reznak mentions that the Yunkai'i are coming for a meeting with Hizdahr because they want to discuss recompense for the Yunkai'i that were killed in the chaos. And we know there's currently 7 hostages held to ensure the peace. three of Hizdahr's kin, and then Daario, Jogo, Grolio, and Hero, maybe he doesn't want anybody around to witness whether or not he plays fair.
He volunteers to have their heads removed.
Like, oh, what random luck was just happened to be none of my family.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that is a very, very valid point, that the non-family members probably counting their days at this point, especially Daario, because he has a reason to want Daario dead.
That is true. Now, the other part about the tenuous nature of his rule here, even though Dany is not there to challenge his rule, it's kind of surprising on one hand because his presence stopped the Sons of the Harpy murders. But maybe at that time, the thought was, the general Myrnese nobles thought was, any nobleman that can get himself into Dany's influence is good. But now that Dany's out of the picture, maybe they're thinking, why Hizdahr? Yeah. He's got no claim to rule me.
It's also, Hizdahr doesn't appear in this chapter, but it's also interesting because Hizdahr came across as like confident and unctuous the whole time that Dany was around. And now he's coming across as like, oh God, I've been exposed here, by her. Yeah. Which is interesting because it felt like he was wresting all the power from her, but now she's gone, he feels like he's lost the power.
Yeah, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Maybe he's realizing it's not so easy to rule as he might have expected it to be, especially as the Unsullied have bailed on him. The Brazen Beasts, according to Skahaz, are only pretending to be loyal to him. Of course, he doesn't know that, but...
Right. But honestly, neither does Skahaz.
Yeah. But Barristan also thinks of Reznak as the perfumed seneschal.
Yes.
Twice, at least twice in this chapter. And we also get the first instance where there's any real feeling of needing to be wary of Reznak. And Reznak certainly makes more sense in Quaith's warning about the beware of the perfumed seneschal than the Selasori Quran, which was the ship that Jorah and Tyrion and Penny were on, that also means stinky, was it?
Steward.
Stinky steward, right, yes.
But you know what? They both still work. You've no idea what Penny, Jorah, and Tyrion are going to bring to Dany. It could be doom.
Yes, it could.
I think Barristan's self-reflection in this chapter is quite interesting. He thinks back to his youth. He never specifically thinks of Jaime, I don't believe, at any point. No. But a lot of his thoughts are around what he did to protect Aerys and to keep Aerys safe and as a result, keep Rhaegar off the throne.
Right.
And how he sort of thinks about how he fulfilled his vows and sort of like did what honor dictated. But you get the feeling he's thinking, he thinks to himself, Rhaegar could have healed the realm. The realm suffered because I saved Aerys. And the realm might have been better with Rhaegar. And it's like, is he on some levels thinking that Jaime did the better thing, that Jaime sacrificed his own honor for a greater good, which Sir Barristan couldn't do?
Yeah, he might be indirectly thinking just that. It's certainly easier for Barristan to shrug off his role in killing the king at Duskendale because he was on the outside of the city walls looking in, and he could have thought, well, I can't get to him to free him, and Tywin is going to siege the city, and then, it was siege. He was going to storm the city, and the king will probably die. Well, if the king dies, Rhaegar is not my fault, and Rhaegar
just a minute, my shoelaces.
Yes. Whereas Jaime's action is directly definable. Jaime put a sword through King Aerys. Yeah. King Aerys. Much more direct.
But I think he definitely flirts with the thing that you and I have talked about, Jaime, the card that Jaime never plays, which is I don't care what you think. I did this because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I know I broke a vow. I totally get it. I broke a vow, but it's the vow that needed to be broken at that time because of the monster he was.
Right.
And I think Barristan is thinking this. I mean, he's definitely not voicing it, but it's definitely occurring to him. And it occurs to him in the first chapter where we've been inside his head, where we realize like he's another one of these Stannis Baratheon Ned Stark types who they begin and end at honor.
Yes.
And they can't think beyond that. And
right.
And he's slightly jealous maybe that Jaime could.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe
but you know what? History will look more favorably on Barristan Selmy. We do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And now that we're getting... I mean, Barristan also didn't push an 8-year-old boy out a window.
Well, I mean, every time I try to make a point, you bring up the one thing.
Believe me, it's not me. It's Jenny speaking through me.
I know. I could hear Jenny saying it.
But just a quick reminder, because we don't get the full details here. So he rescued the king from Dennis Darkland, who was the Lord of Duskendale. And the king had been taken captive because those in Duskendale were angry over Duskendale's port activity dwindling while King's Landings was expanding. And Tywin sieged Duskendale for about half a year, and he planned to storm the town. But Barristan, at the last minute, asked for one chance to rescue the king, and he goes on a solo night mission into Duskendale, successfully rescues the king, even though Barristan took an arrow in his chest. And now what he's thinking is, if he had let Aerys die, Rhaegar was a better king than any of the 3 kings that he served.
Mm-hmm.
So he tried to
potentially.
save... Yeah, he tried to save innocent lives by preventing this storming of Duskendale, which was probably going to cost a lot of people to die. And in the end, it probably cost more lives because Aerys did survive and was such a terrible king. And thanks to Jaime, tens of thousands more were spared because Jaime did the not so honorable thing and broke his vow.
So, Barristan is encouraged by the progress of his young squires. He thinks that so these are basically the kids that were taken as hostages by Daenerys, but he's taken them under his wing to train them as knights. Some haven't made it. Some have been, let go because they weren't good enough. But the ones he's got, he thinks that they're going to be useful knights. I do question this though, because is a knight, as a trained knight, more useful than that which Hizdahr is going to be able to command? Because it seems like what Barristan is training them to be is well-drilled, battle-trained, with an overwhelming adherence to honor.
Sure.
And it feels like Balakor Bonebreaker wouldn't shy from throwing sand in their face,
Right. I think it comes down knight versus pit fighter. I think maybe it comes down to the well-roundedness of their training, kind of like a 5-tool athlete might be. Offense, defense, strategy, horseback, some 5th thing that would make 5 tools that I'm not thinking of.
It's this overwhelming honor, though, that bothers me.
Yes.
Because that's the thing, you've got to be a pit fighter at some point,
In a fight, absolutely. Yeah. I think maybe, like I mentioned earlier, being trained at the art of protection, not just being a good fighter, might be a difference maker. Anticipating the dangers, reaction time to possible concerns, that kind of thing. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah. So the picture that Skahaz paints is not good. It's very bad, in fact. So if Volantis is getting involved, and that this is a sign that the whole peace treaty is a sham. It wasn't clear to me whether he was saying that the Yunkai'i knew the Volantines were coming.
Yeah, if Hizdahr knows, then you would think...
Right, but it felt like they were in opposition to one another. It was like the Yunkai'i want the pound of flesh that they want from Meereen, but it felt like the Volantines were coming to get their own pound of flesh, and they might end up being in opposition to one another.
Yeah, I wondered about how those two things go together. First of all, if Volantis did sail on Meereen, for their sake, I hope they weren't on the water when the storm that destroyed the Selasori Quran was coming through.
We may never see the Volantines again.
Because they were preparing to sail when Tyrion and Jorah were in Volantis. But so Skahaz says that Hizdahr plans to open the gates for the Volantines, and that the former slaves will be re-enslaved, and that they will take new slaves who weren't former slaves. And I was thinking, with the Volantine on their way, it made me wonder, would the Yunkai'i have honored the peace that they have just struck with Meereen regardless, or would they have tried, with this influx of a large new force entering on their side, would they have not wanted peace and wanted war to try and take out Daenerys and any semblance of free market inside the walls of Meereen?
So you're saying if they are aware that all they've been doing for the last couple of weeks has been a holding pattern to keep things as they were, so that when their force gets overwhelmingly increased,
yes,
this will be an open and shut victory for them.
That's the idea I'm proposing, anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, but it is hard to know. It does feel like this might not be coordinated between the two of them, and Hizdahr might be, pulling a fast one on the Yunkai'i.
Maybe
the Yunkai'i think they've got me where they want me, but I'm going to give up the whole city to the Volantines in return for whatever rewards he wants from them.
That could be. I'm trying to remember back to our few chapters when we were in Volantis, and I believe there were Yunkish envoys trying to woo the Volantine onto their side.
Right.
But that doesn't mean Hizdahr might not be doing a runaround.
Yeah.
Made a deal outside of what the Yunkish may have made.
The one thing Skahaz is right about, and Barristan Selmy can see this for himself, is that the bloody flux is decimating the besiegers.
Yeah.
And so if there ever was a time when you wanted to try to break this siege, it would be now. To what end? I don't know, because it's difficult to know exactly what to do. It's, again, without Daenerys, she is the focal point of everything. So you could break the siege and then go somewhere else.
Right.
Break the siege and then come back in and let the siege reform around you. What would you do?
I guess the plan is to break the siege before the Volantine fleet arrives and make it a force that you can't break if you wanted to.
But that presumably would involve taking the Yunkai'i ships so that they've got some naval defenses as well. It sounds a little bit far-fetched. But
agreed.
Good idea, Hey, no bad ideas here. We're trying to find a way out of this mess.
Well, part of the
why
reason
don't we put a bell on the cat?
Well, part of the reason why the Skahaz thinks now is a good time to break the siege is because Yurkazo Yunzak, the supreme military commander of the Yunkai'i, is dead. He died in the chaos when Drogon was in the fighting pit. And there's the line we mentioned in the summary that instead of one old lion, the Yunkai'i army is led now by a pack of hungry jackals. So it sounds like the other military leaders must all be vying for control. And again, Yurkaz's death seems like one of the losses that the Yunkai'i is requesting recompense for in their upcoming meeting with Hizdahr.
Yeah. So, Barristan, on the subject of people wasting time, Barristan wants to meet the bereaved confectioner, but it seems to me that that's a complete waste of time. I mean, Skahaz could pay someone to pretend they were the bereaved confectioner.
Yeah.
I mean, Skahaz himself was kind of like incredulous that he would want this, but he said, "Sure, just give me 5 minutes to find someone."
Yeah, he says that this confectioner was blackmailed by the Sons of the Harpy to kill Daenerys. Could that be true? We know that Skahaz has an axe to grind against Hizdahr. We know that he could have manufactured the entire scenario, like you just said, and paid a
the
man
thing
to
is,
lie.
the scenario has the ring of truth to it, for sure.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Yes.
But there's absolutely nothing to tie it back to Hizdahr, apart from Hizdahr saying you should try the locusts. That is the only thing you could do. But he might like the taste of honeyed locusts. Surprisingly, he didn't try them himself if he likes them, just FYI, you know.
Yes, that is a little bit curious.
There's a little bit of smoke there, but mostly it sounds like this confectioner exists and was paid and was brutally bereft by the killing of his daughter.
Yeah, the other part is that Skahaz says that the reason why the Sons of the Harpy decided to try and kill Dany because Hizdahr they already won. Hizdahr is her king consort, and you know they didn't need to kill her. And he says, well, him wearing the crown and sitting the throne is exactly the smoking gun that we're looking for, because he doesn't need Daenerys anymore. Now she's just someone who can overrule him if he wants to make a decree or something.
Right, but okay. Let's imagine Belwas didn't get sick. Okay, Drogon still comes to the pit and flies off with her, and Hizdahr ends up exactly where he is. It doesn't mean he did something to... He certainly didn't tell Drogon, hey, come in here and fly off with her, please.
Yeah, and you think he might have wanted to wait until they had a son together.
Yeah.
So that he'd have a legitimate heir to rule, when she suddenly died of poison, or of a bad belly, I guess they would call it.
Yeah. I will say, I think Selmy compares himself to Littlefinger and Varys several times during the chapter, and when faced with the story of the confectioner, they would make a decision based on that story. Probably they would already know the truth of it one way or the other, but they would also be willing to make a decision based on that story. I mean, you make a decision based on, this is the story Skahaz is telling me. I'm going to base my decision on that. Not necessarily this is the truth or a lie. You're not going to get any closer to whether this is truth or a lie by talking to the individual.
Yeah, we know Cersei and Littlefinger have tortured men to give false confessions. Right. There's no reason to think that Skahaz couldn't do the same thing.
Right, exactly. So, but he needs to... I mean, I say it like it's easy, but he just needs to engage that executive function and start making decisions. He doesn't know what Daenerys would want from him. It's true, but it's not hard to gauge what she would want. She would want him to team up with the Unsullied. She would want him to protect the people. She would want him not to actively fight Hizdahr necessarily, but certainly if he hears word that the people are about to be re-enslaved, he should fight against that with all he's got. That's what she would want of him.
Definitely. Absolutely would. But he is using a little bit of his executive decision-making by exploiting a loophole to not protect Hizdahr, to set himself up, because he has to do everything by the book and as honorably as possible. And the loophole he's exploiting is that the Kingsguard, or Queensguard in this case, are meant to protect the king, or in this case, queen. It's up to the sovereign to decide to extend the protection to others. And Dany hadn't done so, which gives him room to act on his plan with Skahaz and not breaking his Queensguard vow. So he won't allow any harm to Hizdahr until guilt is proven, and I don't know how you prove the guilt, in this, as you were saying.
Because it wasn't Hizdahr who told the confectioner to poison. The confectioner won't know the answer to that question.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The general story you might establish to be true or false, but it doesn't lead you back to the source of the story. So you're not helping yourself, Barristan.
Yeah.
You're just slowing things down.
And all of this makes me wonder why he and Ned weren't closer friends when they were on the small council together. Maybe too much alike.
Yeah.
But he does agree to at least talk to Grey Worm. That's how the chapter ends, and that's a pretty big step to, rather than just doing what he does and guarding the king, which he's
guarding
been removed
Missandei.
from. Yes, guarding Missandei.
All right, excellent. Time for some spoilers. Remember, if you join us at the upper tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, you get the spoilers. All right, excellent. Thank you for the spoilers. What about some background?
Well, oddly, Barristan, who knows the Targaryens as well as anyone alive, having served them most of his life, got a Targaryen historical fact rather wrong here in this chapter.
It's the kind of thing I wouldn't notice.
Maybe he was just trying to alleviate Missandei's fears. But when Missandei mentions the rumor that the Yunkai'i have surrounded the city with scorpions and plan to shoot down Drogon if he and Dany return, Barristan said that it's really hard to bring down a dragon in the sky and that many tried with Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters and none succeeded. That's the key. None succeeded. The odd thing here is that that's exactly how Rhaenys Targaryen, the younger sister and wife of Aegon, famously died. During the First Dornish War, Rhaenys flew to Dorne to squash a rebellion, and while flying above Hellholt, her dragon Meraxes was struck through the eye by a scorpion bolt. The dragon fell to her death, with Rhaenys on her back, taking out a large section of the castle. Now, Rhaenys' body was never recovered, so the manner of her death remains a mystery. Was she crushed by the dragon? Did she survive and was tortured to death? Nobody knows for sure, but of course rumors have abounded for years. What we do know is that what came next is called the Dragon's Wrath, when Aegon and his other sister and wife, Visenya, were so distraught over Rhaenys' death that they burned every Dornish castle at least 3 times, except for Sunspear. They wanted the small folk to believe that the Martells had bought their safety and caused the small folk to rise up against them. And in a long, kind of winding way, all of this led to the creation of the Kingsguard. So you'd think that Barristan would have heard of this info before. Plus, Meraxes' skull sits in the dungeon of the Red Keep.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised that he said no one had ever succeeded in taking a dragon.
Maybe like you said, he was just trying to protect Missandei's feelings.
Yes, maybe.
Just a thought there, actually. Do we know the gender of all 3 of Daenerys' dragons?
I don't. I had to look up Meraxes to see the gender of Meraxes. It's a she-dragon.
Yes. I was just thinking, there used to be a gender connection between the rider and the dragon, no? And that seems to have disappeared. I don't know if that was ever that strong, but I felt like the original 3 were ridden by people of the same gender.
Well, yeah, Balerion, I believe, was a male dragon. Vhagar, I believe, was a female dragon. And Meraxes was obviously a female dragon. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about...
coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know how it goes after that. I've not studied it.
There's too many
enough.
dragons, too many riders. It gets
right.
Compared to the television show, so I spent a bit of time looking for this, and it dawned on me that this doesn't exist for a very big reason.
Oh, yes, it doesn't, but you can't say why.
I can't say why, because it might be a spoiler for the whole thing. So let me just say, none of this happened. Quite profoundly, none of this happened. And anything I say from this point forward would be a spoiler. So, yeah, we'll just have to leave that there. You have to go and watch the TV show if you want to know what I'm talking about. But you're looking at season 5, and you'll see why. If you watch the end of season 5, you'll see why there's nothing to say here.
Yeah.
All right.
Makes sense.
Pedantry. Well, apart from Barristan not knowing his dragon lore, and also, I mean, just also on that, he seemed to think that Daenerys rode the dragon like the Targaryens would, but he never saw that. He's not that old.
That's right. It's been more than 63 years, that's for sure.
I mean, you'd think if he'd seen that, he would have remembered the one that got shot through the eye. But so, yes, I don't have any other pedantry this week.
No, me either.
All right. News and notes.
Well, one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to send a huge thank you to Kevin for buying us 5 cups of Arbor Gold through our Buy Me a Coffee page. So thank you, Kevin.
You know what? All day Monday, I had a Arbor Gold hangover.
That's right. And we could thank Kevin for that too.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. We really appreciate it.
Yes, really.
And we're having a sustainer call coming soon. If you're a Buy Me a Coffee sustainer, keep an eye out for an invite. It'll be in the next week or so.
Yeah.
I see. There's a twinkle in his eye, ladies and gentlemen.
What was I going to possibly say? I wasn't going to say anything.
It's before we started. He said, "Yeah, we had one in January, and we should have one in February or early March." And I was like, "God, it feels like we haven't had one since last year." And Mackelly was like, "Uh-huh."
Well, one of us hasn't had one since last year.
I'm sorry. I will definitely be there.
So he says.
Right. Let's conclude this one. So Barristan Selmy is thrust into the role he's not happy with, but his North Star, and I think he's latching onto this himself, it's got to be, what would Dany want me to do?
Yeah.
And that is pretty clear. Protect her people.
Yeah, and that probably means sort of sacrificing his honor. In some ways, he's holding up his honor because he's protecting his queen's best interests.
Yeah.
So you could argue that he's protecting his honor, but looking at it from another light, he might be sacrificing his honor and doing a bit of scheming with Skahaz.
Yeah. Right, he definitely sees any kind of scheming as being the kind of thing that Littlefinger or Varys would do, and he shouldn't have to. But,
Right. Yeah.
You are all those people rolled into one right now. You are Kingsguard and Lord of Whispers.
Yeah, he's all she's got at the moment because everybody else has been canned in one fashion or another.
Yeah. And it might be self-serving as well, because Shavepate's threat that Barristan might end his days in the fighting pits does seem like a fairly likely outcome. If he gets enslaved, he would be a big draw.
Yeah, if Skahaz is playing him true, and Hizdahr does plan on opening the gates to the Volantene when they show up and letting them enslave whoever they feel like it, then yeah, he might, if he doesn't die in the fighting.
Right, that would be his only other way out, is to die or to die in the fighting pits.
Yeah.
And as you said, Hizdahr is cleaning house. There's no one left close to Hizdahr who could even be thought of as being remotely Team Dany.
Right. And now, he does also seem to be discovering that he doesn't have command of his rule like he thought he was going to have, probably. Losing the Unsullied might have been his biggest blunder. He doesn't realize that he's lost the Brazen Beasts. He should, like we mentioned, they were a mixture of freedmen and Shavepates. So he should be wary of their loyalty to him versus Skahaz and Daenerys.
True.
But we're not in his mind. Maybe we'll get a POV of Hizdahr and then we'll know what he's thinking.
Yeah. And none of this has simplified the equation for Meereen, because if Volantis really is on its way and the Yunkai'i are being decimated by the bloody flux, whilst being headless in terms of leadership or infighting as sort of like, taking over them, who knows what's next for Meereen? I mean, it's even, if even part of what Skahaz knows to be true is true, it could be a crazy situation for a long time to come. Very difficult to pick your way out of. Yeah,
Volantis is really throwing a wrench into everything because we don't know what they're what that means that they're sailing toward Meereen, especially since peace has already been struck.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Next up, we have a chapter called The Iron Suitor, which is very interesting. Like I've said before, I like the non-named chapters.
Yes, you do.
There's 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and possibly review. You could, as Kevin did, buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhall, where you can also join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. You can try any tier for free for a week. The upper tiers get you the sustainer calls and the spoilers.
That's right.
Or you can make a donation directly to our cause through our website, ghostsofharrenhall.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, you can always send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode show notes. Please just keep in mind we have no means of responding, but we do enjoy reading them. And if you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghosts Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.